Boxing King Media in association with Boxer. A new dad at 40 years old. I want to start with that, Matt, because I'm sure it's quite a proud moment. I saw pictures of your little one, almost identical twins.
Yeah, well, she's this spitting image of me when I was a newborn baby. I mean, obviously, we didn't have camera phones in those days, but some of the old pictures that I've dug out, literally the double. So, yeah, I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse for her.
We'll wait and see. She'll probably curse you when she's older, but I'm sure you're enjoying the late nights and just being a dad in general.
That's it, just, learning to function on 2 hours sleep a day. Do you know what, I've got to say, my missus, she's been unbelievable, brilliant, but I've definitely pulled my weight, and that sleep deprivation creeps up on you, doesn't it?
It gets easier, mate. It gets easier. So let's go on to Lawrence Okolie, back on Sky Sports. A lot of back and forward, all sorts of drama in the background, but he's finally here Saturday night. David Light, what kind of fight are you expecting?
I'm hoping that Okolie makes a statement. I'm hoping that his approach to the fight, his mental approach is right, that he doesn't put too much pressure on himself, that he goes in there focused but relaxed, so that he lets it flow and hopefully puts on a statement performance.
You probably didn't have it in your career. I know Johnny had it loads, but Lance, I spoke to him yesterday and I said, you've had so much shit to deal with. You've had obviously all the negativity from obviously Eddie Hearn, mainly because obviously the relationship broke apart. The fans who are obviously saying, you're boring, you're this, you're that. But no one seems to recognise the fact that he's won every single belt he could have won with limited amateur experience, beating all the contenders in front of him. I'm like, how did you deal with that? And he seems like he doesn't really care.
Yeah, well, he's probably toughened up to it now. Do you know what I mean? You get thick skin as you get a bit older, as you get a bit more experienced in boxing. The first time you get slated, you take it quite personal, but then after a bit, it doesn't affect you anywhere near as badly. So, I thought Eddie did a great job with him, promoting him, but he did his part in the ring. Okay, his performances weren't always the most pleasant on the eye, but you couldn't dispute the fact that he was winning titles early doors, back to back, with, like you say, even though he had amateur pedigrees and he was an Olympian, etc. In terms of the number of fights and how long he'd been doing it, it wasn't a long time at all. He was still quite novice in that regard. He has got better. I think he improved a lot with Shane McGuigan. Obviously now circumstances outside of the ring has meant he wants to be based in Dubai, I believe, and he's working there with Sugar Hill and maybe up in Morecambe with Tyson Fury. And listen, he's going to learn a lot being around Tyson Fury. That's a fact. His success breeds success, and you're in a gym with people like that, you can't but learn. So I think that, and maybe he needed to remotivate himself. I don't know. Maybe the last while was I don't know, probably draining. That outside the ring stuff can be draining, emotionally draining. So I'd imagine he's absolutely delighted that that's behind him now, and now he can just focus on the boxing.
Definitely so. I'm intrigued to see where his journey goes, whether it's heavyweight, cruiserweight, wherever it goes. And then looking down the card, you've got somebody who fought from your era, Michael Gomez. His son's fighting on the undercard as well. I bet that must bring back some memories.
Yeah, it's weird, really, because I remember him when he was only a really young kid, because his dad was, we were good mates. I haven't seen Mike in years, but hopefully I'll see him Saturday night. But yeah, his son's boxing. I think he's doing well for himself, and I wish him good luck. I wish him the best of luck on Saturday night.
Good stuff. And so I want to talk to you about a couple of other subjects. The biggest, hottest topic in boxing right now. I still really don't know if it's done, dusted or not, but Fury Usyk looks like he's dead in the water. Looking at what you've seen from both sides and the money involved, who do you feel like should be getting the blame for this fight not happening right now?
Well, you're right. I don't know the ins and outs, but from the outside looking in and what we know, it looks like Fury's the one who's keeps moving the goalposts. And Team Usyk keep bending over backwards trying to make the fight. But if they keep moving the goalposts and the clock's ticking and the fight's, at some point, where'd you go? So it's just so frustrating because these are the sort of things that are going to end up killing boxing. There was a great show in London the weekend with I'm not an MMA fan, but I know some of the people who were training in the gym with a bit of PT, they're MMA fans, and they were saying how this fight went on, and Leon Edwards from Birmingham, he knocked the guy out last time in the last round, that's come from this time he dominated it, and they're buzzing about it because the best are fighting the best. We've got Errol Spence and Terence Crawford still haven't fought each other. These guys aren't spring chickens. Fury, AJ haven't fought each other. Fury and Usyk, like there's nothing standing in the way by the looks of things. And now suddenly there are things standing in the way, but standing in the way because Fury's putting them in the way. And at some point the other side just think, well, we can't do a deal. You're being unreasonable. We have to look at other options, and it's frustrating because I've always been a big fan for Fury. I've always, I thought what he did, what he came back from, even going over to Germany, beating Klitschko, and coming back. Well, it's hard to defend him when it seems like the reason the fights aren't happening now is because of him.
Well, somebody told me an analogy yesterday, which is quite interesting. They said if Fury fights Usyk, let's just say there's 100 million on the table. 30% of that is 30 million. But if Usyk was to fight Joyce, for example, there might be 10 million on the table, of which a 50-50 deal is 5 million. So Fury's position is that he brings all that money to the table, so he should get the lion's share, because no matter what percentage Usyk gets, he will still get a lot more than he'd get fighting anybody else other than AJ.
Yeah, but he is getting a lot more. He's getting 70% is the lion's share, and also, he hit the 70% fighting Usyk is going to be a lot more than 100% or 95% boxing someone else, because Usyk is bringing a lot to the table too. Like it's not just it's the fight that's so big. It's the fight that everyone's buying into, because it's a fight that people believe they aren't certain of the outcome. Anyone else who Fury fights, really, if it's not Anthony Joshua at this point, I think they'll just think it's a foregone conclusion. Where he'd be a big favourite against Usyk, he'd be a big favourite against Joshua, but they could beat him. People will think this is a great fight, and some people will be picking the other guy. Other than those two, who's really going to pick against Fury against anyone else? So really, the fight doesn't really excite anyone. So, as much as Fury's the bigger name, like Usyk has just beaten Anthony Joshua in back-to-back fights. He does have 3 belts. He's a major part of this fight. He does deserve his share, and the fact that he seems to be willing to accommodate. You can't make a deal. You can't say, okay, I'll do the fight if you do this, and then you take it and say, no, but now you've got to do it. Then it's you, aren't you? You're the one then who's problematic. That's unreasonable in the negotiation.
Fair point. And then just moving on to other matters, did you watch the Simon Jordan, Eddie Hearn thing? I'm sure you would have seen it because half the country's watched it. Who did you think won that debate?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I knew they were having the debate, and I read little bits and pieces after, but I didn't watch it or listen to it. No, so I can't say.
I think the general consensus is that Eddie Hearn probably walked out a winner in that debate. The other thing I want to speak to you about is...
let's be honest, what I will say is, fair play to Eddie, because you're talking about two heavyweight debaters there, aren't you? Because Simon Jordan's very good at debating. He's very good at making his points and articulating it. But Eddie's very good too, So, and look, really, Eddie's probably knows more of the facts than Simon Jordan does, because Eddie's a boxing guy. Simon Jordan is a football guy that is interested in boxing and knows a little bit. So he's sort of, playing poker there with a guy who knows more of what the cards are.
Definitely so. It was very interesting. I definitely urge you to watch it. The other thing I want to speak to you about is this whole situation with Conor Benn and his next potential opponent. I don't know if you saw the interview I did with Kell Brook a few weeks ago. He seems like he could be tempted if the money's right. He feels like he should get paid what he deserves. Do you want to see Kell back in the ring against Conor Benn? And also, what do you think of how the whole situation is now playing out?
No, I'd just like to see Kell find peace and happiness and contentment in retirement. I think he had a fantastic career. He got the perfect ending with the Khan win, and I know I've read and seen interviews on retirement is tough, but it's going to be tough after the, if he does the Ben fight, it's going to be tough in 6 months. It's going to be tough in 2 years. And it'll be tougher because the longer you go on, the more chances are you're going to get beaten to someone who you wouldn't have got beaten to, and then you're going to have the regret of all that to deal with. I think going out on that win against Amir Khan was the perfect time for him to call a day, and he's just going to have to go through the process of adapting to life after boxing, which is going to be there. He's got more chances of that coming out positively now than carrying on, losing, and then you're going to be in the same place anyway. But now you're going to have more regrets to deal with.
Fair play. And last thing I want to speak to you about, Matt, is what we've seen in recent times is that, this whole battle between boxer and matchroom and fighters moving across matching rights, something I'd never heard before. Was it around in your times? Were you aware of, if you signed a contract with a promoter and your last fight was up, your promoter at the time would have an option on potentially keeping you if he matched whatever you was being offered by another side?
Yeah, there was one time in my career with HBO where they, I think before the Golovkin fight, where you signed that it was like an option that they had sort of first and last refusal. If they could match, someone else offered you a deal, as long as they could match it, you'd be obligated to take that deal with them.
Do you think it's a good thing? Probably works out good for the fighter, or does it not? Because the Buatsi situation in particular, because it seemed like from everything he said, he just didn't want to fight on the zone anymore for his own reasons. But in that scenario, it probably wouldn't work, would it?
Sometimes as well, business it's people, isn't it? And sometimes the personal relationship or the business relationship has just soured to the point that I don't want to deal with you anymore. No matter what the deal is, no matter what the terms are, no matter what commercial terms are, I just don't want to deal with you as a person anymore. That can happen. We've seen it with Canelo and Golden Boy. He got out of that contract with the Zone really because his personal dislike and personal relationship with De La Hoya had completely broken down. And actually, I think I'm not sure, but I think his next fight ended up being on the Zone anyway. I'm nearly sure it was. So it wasn't about the relationship with the Zone. It was just he just didn't want to deal with De La Hoya anymore, and that's life, isn't it? That's people. So I don't know the ins and outs, but Buatsi and Eddie, maybe it just got to a position where whatever's gone on, he just didn't want to deal with him anymore.
Did you ever end up in a situation like that with a promoter in your own career?
No, not really. I can't think of the top of my head. Look, there's you have your ups and downs over the years with different people, different circumstances. But no, nothing that ever became unworkable. But there were times, I think, probably when I wanted to move on, and I did. But I think usually both parties, if it's soured, they realise it's not going to work anyway, and they'll kind of give you the blessing as long as. But if they've invested a lot of money into you, and they don't feel they've had their return for the investment, and they feel they've done the right thing by you, they might feel, well, no, we're going to dig in here. We've got a legal contract that can enforce things. But usually, if the relationship has really soured, then it makes sense for both people to go their separate ways.
Thank you, Matt. Last thing I want to ask you is, from your own personal experience when you fought Triple G, can you remember anything from that fight in the moments when you was getting hit with them hooks to the body? What was going through your mind? I just want you to kind of share mentally what's going through your mind facing one of the all-time greatest punchers.
Well, I don't know, you're in the fight, aren't you? So you're just trying to do whatever you can to win the fight, or if you're under the cosh, you're thinking how to get out of that situation and try and build on the fight. But it was over quickly, really, wasn't it? Third round, like I came out, tried to box him first two, wasn't working. Tried to fight in the third then, but I think I should have just went out and fought it from the bell, because boxing him just didn't work. It just invited more pressure. I wasn't good enough to outbox him. I might not have outfought him, but I've had a chance. At least I would have had a chance, and I would have started at the first bell at 50-50. But once I tried to box him after 2 rounds, I'm 2 rounds down. I'm cut. I'm under the cosh. His tail's up. Mine's between my legs. So, but in the end, then it was a great shot that done me.
The power you would have expected, was it what you expected, or was it when he hit you thought, fuck me, this is way worse?
No, do you know what? The shots he caught me with to the head were solid, but nothing that rocked me, my equilibrium or anything like that. But he didn't really catch me with anything heavy to the head. There were sort of straight shots, stiff jabs, a couple of straight right hands, which was solid. but I was okay. They were fine. But the shot that did me obviously was a body shot, but maybe because I was preoccupied with the shots that were coming to the head. That's why he got me down there.
Interesting stuff. Matthew Macklin, as always, I appreciate your time. Good luck on being a dad.
Cheers.